Thank you to War Thunder for sponsoring this video. The Balkans. A region known for a variety of things, such as its eccentric history, explosive politics, cholesterol-heavy food, and peculiar nationalists that will argue about everything and anything, including whether or not ants belong to the Serbs or the Croats, when in fact, we all know they are Hungarian. A lovely place with even lovelier people, but where exactly is this region and what constitutes as Balkan? Is this a Balkan? Or is this a Balkan? This certainly must be a Balkan. No, this is Balkan. No, this is a Balkan. What about this? What about that? Is your mom a Balkan? Is your neighbor? What about that weird guy that walks with a rabbit in the middle of town? Where is the Balkan? To answer this question is no easy task, and throughout history, it has caused plenty of debate on what exactly constitutes as Balkan. Even today, you will see plenty of people in online comment sections arguing over whether their country is or isn't Balkan. For many, Balkan means a geographic area that encompasses all the territories south of the Sava River and south of the Danube after its confluence with the Sava, which either fully or partially encompasses these 11 countries. But if you've ever crossed these two rivers, you might have noticed that there is not that much geographic difference between the two sides. It's filled with the same trees, people, types of terrain, animals, and everything and anything in between. And precisely because of this, people have struggled to define where exactly the Balkans start and civilization ends. 200 years ago, what we today know as the Balkans did not exist. Indeed, it was a lovely time. Much of this area we all know and love today, throughout most of our not so distant history, was known as Romania. And the people that lived here, despite speaking a variety of different languages and having different cultures, the educated people from them referred to themselves as Romans. Indeed, that was a LARP like no other. As previously to the arrival of the Ottomans, much of the Balkans used to belong to the Eastern Roman Empire at different points in time. As the Ottomans were Muslim and seen as invaders, many just simply referred to themselves as Christians in a way to differentiate between us, the Romanians, aka Balkaners, and them, the Ottomans. While much of Western Europe didn't refer to the region as a whole at all, but rather as smaller sub-regions that used to be part of the Roman Empire, such as Dacia, Macedonia, Epirus, and Moesia. The term Balkan only started to be used in the mid to late 19th century to refer to the region as a whole, and that's by mistake. You see, the word Balkan originally referred to the mountain cluster that goes through modern-day Bulgaria. Throughout the 19th century, many Western explorers, travelers, and military personnel wrote of their expeditions into the Ottoman Empire, in which they'd often note crossing the Balkans. Alongside this, the finer details about the Ottoman realm weren't that well known by Europeans, as few dared to step into the lands of heathens who saw alcohol as a sin. As such, many assumed that the Balkan mountains spread across Romania similarly to the Pyrenees in Iberia. And so, by the end of the century, many of the previously subjugated peoples got independence from their Turkish overlords and formed their own independent kingdoms. This term caught on, and many started to refer to the entirety of Ottoman-controlled Europe as Balkan. But even then, the term was still debated with many German and Bulgarian purists, arguing that the term is wrongly used and it is exclusively the name of a mountain chain and nothing else. Because God forbid people have some fun. Nevertheless, by 1917 and the end of the Balkan Wars, the term was widely adopted and the region started to be officially referred to as the Balkan Peninsula. Okay, so you might say, that's easy. The Balkans are simply Ottoman-controlled Europe. Case closed, video done, we all can go home. But even with that definition, we run into a problem. Was this Ottoman Europe? Or was it this Ottoman Europe? Or was it this one? Or maybe it was this one. With no specific geographic indicators and no specific historic border defining what is Balkan ends up being not such an easy task after all. To find a definition, we'd have to look at what it means to be a European living under the Ottomans.
No, please don't take my son. He is the only on a cave.
The law is the law.
No please, anything but my child. Please, please stay.
War Thunder, baby! Although the Ottomans seemed like a huge threat 300 years ago, they wouldn't stand a chance against any of the 2,500 tanks, planes, helicopters, and ships from the most comprehensive vehicle combat game ever made, War Thunder. Take command of war machines from 10 different nations, ranging from biplanes and armored carts of the 1920s to the fighter jets and main battle tanks of today, and immerse yourself in intense combat of War Thunder. Alongside with the realistic graphics and authentic sound effects, you can also join a worldwide community of over 70 million players in epic PvP battles and delve into an unforgettable experience that is War Thunder. If that wasn't enough, you also have an in-depth customization, a buttload of game modes that can suit you no matter if you're looking for a more realistic or arcade-like playstyle, and all of which is heavily optimized so that even that toaster you call a PC can run it. So what are you waiting for? Click my link in the description and play War Thunder for free on PC, PlayStation, or Xbox now. New and returning players that haven't played in 6 months will also receive a massive bonus pack across all platforms that include multiple premium vehicles, the exclusive vehicle decorator, Eagle of Valor, 100,000 Silver Lions, and 7 days of premium account. But beware, this is only available for a limited time only, so go and download the game right now. Despite what many Westerners will tell you on the topic of religious tolerance within the Ottoman Empire, the Ottoman tolerance of non-Muslims did not carry the same weight as today's word for tolerance does. As I mentioned before, despite Romania being extremely diverse when it came to languages, cultures, and even religion, the people divide themselves into two: Christians and Muslims. And that's for good reason. You see, as a Christian, no matter if you were a Serb, Romanian, Hungarian, Greek, or Bulgarian, you were a second-class citizen. You paid additional financial taxes for being of a heretical faith, which came to be known as the jizya, but most importantly, you paid the blood tax. Known colloquially as the devshirme system, Christian subjects within the Ottoman Empire were forced to give up their male children every 4 to 7 years to the Ottoman state, where they would be forcibly converted to Islam and made a part of the Ottoman army by having them join the Janissaries or be utilized as slave labor on certain projects, and would never see their families again. The Janissaries would then be used to further conquer Christian territory and oppress their own people. Because of this, throughout the Ottoman Balkans, mothers would often mutilate their children by chopping off a finger or plucking out their eye, or sometimes even hacking off an entire hand, as for their child not to be taken from them. Furthermore, when the Christians rebelled, their rebellions would be met with the slaughter of their entire village and sexual assault on their women. Even when there was peace, many within the Balkans weren't safe. The Ottomans, although they conquered new realms, seldom invested or developed them, partly due to the terrain being so rugged and partly due to them being inhabited primarily with who they saw as good-for-nothing, pork-sucking, rakia-guzzling lunatics that will never feel the touch of 72 virgins. As a result, banditry became a common occurrence, and it wasn't unheard of bands of raiders plundering Balkan villages. Because of this, as Europe slowly turned to industrialization, the Balkans reverted to agriculture as their people fled deeper into the mountains to seek safety and relied on sustenance farming. Now, while the Balkans are geographically difficult or even nonsensical to define, culturally it is a different story, and I'd argue that this suppression from the Ottomans was and still is what defines a country as being Balkan. Despite each of these countries having a different culture, language, and people, what unifies them is the centuries of suffering they spent under the Ottomans and the overarching Balkan culture that came as a result of it. For example, food. Everyone loves food. I like food, you like food, he likes food, he certainly likes food, and as such, one of the biggest identifiers of a Balkan culture is food. If you look at the national cuisines of the countries in this region, you will notice that most of them share very similar dishes. Almost everywhere you can find a dish known as cevapi, or as the Romanian calls them mici, cabbage rolls known as sarma or töltött kapusta in Hungarian, and meat pie known as burek. Now, although as a proud Turk nationalist will tell you, most of these originally came from Turkey, There is a different thing that makes them Balkan, and that's the fact that they are made out of pork. Amongst blood and money, another way Ottomans taxed their Christian subjects was through food. One of the ways this tax came to fruition was during religious celebrations. During Saints' Day, a celebration prevalent amongst Orthodox Christians, where a family celebrates their patron saint and cooks a feast to commemorate the saint, the local Turkish administration would often come uninvited and help themselves to the food. This was also a case during Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, and one of the best ways to avoid paying your taxes and feeding your pasha was to offer them something they can't consume. Here you go, Mehmet, please help yourself to the roasted pork. Ivana spent the entire day making it. Please, have some of the baked potatoes too. She drowned it in beer, the taste is immaculate. Oh, you can't have any of this? Sorry to hear that, Mehmet. I guess you'll just have to sit here and watch us eat. Long live the Empire! In Serbian there is a word for this type of action, inat, which essentially means doing something contrarian out of nothing else but pure spite. And arguably, that word is the most befitting one to the Balkans. Another thing that came out as a result of Ottoman occupation was this culture of inat, where many Balkaners conducted petty efforts of resistance. If you go anywhere in the rural Balkans, from the mountains of Bosnia and Bulgaria to the flatlands of Serbia and Romania, you will notice quite a lot of litter. One might assume that this is due to the inefficient public institutions, and to an extent they'd be correct. But the main reason behind this culture of littering is inat. You see, another way of protest against the Ottoman government, besides offering pigs as tribute, was littering. After the Ottomans took over the Balkans, they became in charge of public administration, and with that, sweeping and cleaning the streets. Thus, many out of spite would just throw their trash on the street, as the Turks would be the ones who would have to clean it up. The reason behind doing so has long been forgotten, and it has become quite an ugly habit many have today. But the spirit that was originally behind this practice is what makes the Balkans Balkan. Vasile, what are you doing? Are you crazy? You can't just throw your used car battery into the Prut. Don't worry, if I destroy the ecosystem, the Turks won't be able to enjoy it. Okay, in that case, I'll throw mine as well. Further, another great signifier of a country being Balkan would be a low-trust society. In Romania there is a joke, where a Romanian goes into the woods and finds a magic fairy. The fairy tells him that whatever he wishes for, she will grant him, but also double it and give it to his neighbor. Upon hearing this, he wishes to go blind in one eye. Despite this being a popular joke in Romania, its social commentary can be seen across this region. Because of Ottoman persecution, later on communist oppression, Balkan countries have become low-trust societies, skeptical of the government and anyone not a part of their family. In Greece, for example, one of the more common ways of this presentation is in the Greeks not paying or fudging the amount of what they have to pay in taxes. Again, this too came about during the times of Ottoman occupation as yet another way of silent protest. In a way to conceal their wealth, many Greeks would build houses that would seem on the outside quite modest, but have large courtyards where they could conduct their business and display their riches far from the sight of the outside world. In ex-Yugoslavia, you can also see this manifest in a different way. If you've ever taken a drive through the countryside here, you might have noticed loads of open brick houses with exposed PVC windows and door frames. On first glance, you might think that the people living here are so poor they cannot even afford to finish the facade on their home, but that is far from the case. Many avoid putting a facade on their house, as that way they wouldn't be forced to pay property tax in the full amount. So, with all of that in mind, the Balkans aren't a geographic group nor a political one either, but rather a cultural one, as all of the countries that can be considered Balkan were under the Ottomans under some time in some shape or form. In that time, overarching cultural themes evolved that transcended national borders and still do. Other than food, outlook on government and society, being a Balkan means being resilient and adaptive in the face of adversity and arguably even a little bit cheeky. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, smash that like and subscribe button. And again, thank you to War Thunder for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to play it for free on PC, PlayStation or Xbox now by using my link in the pinned comment or video description. New and returning players that haven't played in 6 months will also receive a massive bonus pack across all platforms, including multiple premium vehicles and other goodies. Available for a limited time only, so make sure not to miss it. And if you really like it, consider becoming a member like these wonderful people, or go and check out theIronicShop.com. Everything helps in making future videos like these. My name is Janos and you've watched Living Ironically in Europe.